What's up, everybody? It's your man, Uncle D, the Brick City Monk here. And well, you guys know how these things start. I was having a conversation with a friend. Excuse me. And we were talking about a clip that I sent her from the video. From the podcast, tonight's conversation, where they were talking about infidelity. And I thought this would be a good jumping off point to talk about emotional intelligence. Because the young woman in the video, if I'm getting the characters right, I know Ace Metaphor, I know Keita Rose, and I know Trip. And I think the other young lady is Kitty, the dark-skinned young lady, who made the comment, who was answering the question about infidelity. So I don't know. They didn't play the actual question from the audience member. They just played Kitty's response, and I was very, for lack of a better term, I really don't like this word, particularly in the context that I'm about to use it. But I was triggered because I was like, everything that she's saying releases ownership from the person who's having the feelings. She talked about how infidelity was a hard thing because you start comparing yourself to the other person and you start questioning your value and all these other things. Y'all know I'm going to always say something that you don't like. Because, and if you've watched me before, what I'm about to say should not shock you. The first mistake, and to me in this whole scenario, is expecting that the man would be monogamous. I don't know why you all still expect that. A man can tell you he is. How many men have told you that they're going to be monogamous to you and have not been? I'm not saying all of men. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the large amount of men who are married in relationships, in a committed relationship, many of them aren't faithful. And statistics bear that out. That's not something I'm coming up with. You can Google as many statistics as you want about marriage, how it's more than 50% of marriages that fail, whatever the percentage is of people who their marriages fail because of infidelity. You can find all of that on Google. The conversation I would like to have is starting before the relationship ever begins, because it is incumbent upon the person to manage their own emotions. And that is where we do not give enough focus, if you will. I always talk about how, I don't know where you're seeing this video, if it's in the United States, women in this country are sold a fairy tale. They're told a lot of things, to expect a lot of things from men that nobody is teaching them in. There is no congruous attitude about what a man should know before he gets married or before he takes on a girlfriend or gets into a committed relationship. There's no congruous conversation about what the expectation of a man is, aside from support and what is it you all like? Security and support. You expect him to protect you and provide. But who is teaching the men what the level of support is for a family? When does that conversation begin? Who is teaching the men how to protect the family, or what the scope of protection should be for your family? When does that conversation start? Because it gets too late after you're in the marriage and unhappy and have children, and now somebody is looking outside the marriage for something, whatever it is that people look for when they're looking outside their marriage to other people, whatever that is. It's a myriad of things. They're looking for comfort. They're looking for understanding. They're looking for a listening ear. They're looking for more sex. They're looking for whatever it is. Whatever it is that they're looking for, now you're here in the marriage because there hasn't been a full enough conversation in the beginning about what the expectations are. And can you handle those expectations? See, we keep rushing into marriage thinking that's going to solidify the deal. That is going to make everything come together. Once he takes these vows, he is going to understand that I am to be the only one and all the other women do not matter. And vice versa. Men think the same thing about some women, and that's not true. There's nothing in your reality that tells you that that is true. The fact that you think that your marriage is going to be the exception shows that you really don't have a good understanding about what emotional intelligence is. The fact that you didn't know this man for 5 years before you married him tells me that you didn't do a thorough enough investigation. Why do I say 5 years? Because it's hard for people to keep up a pretense for 5 years. Most infidelity happens it'll happen within the first 5 years. Most often. It doesn't take years and years and years for you to get bored and tired. It takes after 1 or 2 kids and the routine changes from what it was when you were dating. And now somebody feels neglected, somebody feels overburdened, whatever the case is. Because there was no conversation, nobody made sure that the person that they were marrying was emotionally intelligent enough to handle the vows that they were taking. He asked you, you were excited, and you said yes, because this was what you have always wanted. Did you check his credit score before you got married? Did you even check his criminal record? Did you check with his friends outside of his presence? Did you check with his family outside of his presence to see what type of person he is? Did you ask them what happened with the last woman or man? Because he might not have given you the full story. He or she might not have given you the entire story. And I'm saying all this, and yet no. I remember having a conversation with somebody who said, well, you never truly know a person. No, you can never truly know a person. And here's the other thing, is that people change. In our society, it is usually women who say that they reserve the right to change their mind, but men can change their minds too. And now he's laying up in some woman who you think is beneath you's bed, and you wondering why it is he would go to that from you. It has nothing to do with you. That's the thing. See, when you begin to understand emotional intelligence, you have to begin to understand that other people's actions aren't about you ever. Nothing that anybody else, that's a very arrogant thing that we have adopted in our society, is to believe that what I am doing is because of what you are doing. I might retaliate in some intimate situation because you did this and now I'm gonna do that, something like that. But to just believe that people are always in response to you. Nobody's thinking about you that much, except you. Your husband isn't, your wife isn't, your children aren't. Nobody is but you. Nobody is thinking that much about you but you. And that is the conversation that needs to begin before you begin to think about getting into a committed relationship with another person. There are some elements to emotion. There are 5 key elements that I have found out are a part of emotional intelligence. They are self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Now, if you look at that list, it doesn't begin to be about anybody else until number 4. The first 3 are about you. Because your emotional intelligence and how you respond in situations is never going to be about anybody else. It is going to be about you. If somebody cheats on you, instead of wondering why, you can get into the mode of making a decision as to whether this is something that you want to tolerate in your life or not. If this isn't what you signed up for, you can begin to make plans for a life outside of this. Or you can say, look, this was what happens sometimes in marriages. I signed up for better or for worse, and I'm going to stay. There's no bad decision there. Either one is fine. But taking you through a bunch of machinations over why somebody else did something that they did is where we have to stop. That is where we have to pause. If you notice this week, I'm trying because my friend told me last week that I need to be a little bit nicer when I'm delivering, and I would like that person to know that I do listen and I do take it to consideration. I do, and I think I'm doing pretty good so far because I want women in particular to understand that no matter who your man is and what he says, even if he says, I'm going to, there's nobody else, there could be a possibility at some later date after things have transpired.
After he get old.
Right, and needs some reassurance that he's still a man. That type of,
He wants somebody there because he don't want to die alone.
Boom.
And he can't pull him like he used to.
And see, that's the thing. I'm glad you said that because this thought was in my head earlier before I came here to do this. It was about testosterone, right? How people will use that sometimes as a jab with men. Like, and this is not a personal jab, but a general jab. Like, men's testosterone levels are lower than they have ever been in history. Well, we don't have to hunt meat to eat anymore. We aren't allowed to kill another man because he has touched your woman. You don't have to run from wild animals in the forest and protect your home from beasts that would attack you in the night, aside from human ones. So your testosterone levels, we as a generation, we as a people, our testosterone levels should be lower, men. Because we don't have to do those things anymore. We're not hunters and gatherers like we used to be. We don't have to build this nation from scratch like we once did. So yeah, your testosterone level, it's called evolution. Look it up. It's what happens when things change. We begin to adapt to our new environment. As we adapt to our new environment, the things that used to be good for us are no longer good for us. Our body makes changes. And that happens across the board. We as a human race. So stop using that and thinking that that's the reason why XYZ. People like to say, I've heard podcasts where guys are going, yeah, they putting hormones in the meat and that's why the testosterone. Shut up. Shut up. You haven't done the math and science corollary for that oftentimes. There's one or two of you who may have, but most of you haven't. You're repeating what the fuck somebody else said. Because the first thing that you should think if there's testosterone levels changing in society is look at the society. That will tell you why there are changes. Women have to face different types of danger than they have ever had before. So yeah, they may have higher testosterone levels and lower estrogen levels. As there aren't as many women who are having children as before. So generally across the board, the estrogen levels as a human race will probably decline a little bit because the same things aren't needed, because the same things aren't happening. People aren't having 11 children anymore. They may have one or two. So women's bodies aren't the same baby-making machines needing the same chemicals that they used to. It's called critical thinking. Stop letting people put ideas in your head that you haven't researched. And I would challenge anybody, if there's anything that I'm saying, because my research is limited as well. If there's anything that I'm saying that you know is, if it's wrong, tell me it's wrong. If it's completely if it's founded but going in the wrong direction, tell me that. I am open to listen to, because my thing is, let's get the information right. We need the information right. We trust a system to educate us that does not want you to have right information. The system that we live in these United States of America, miseducates us on purpose so that we are always finding adversity, because we're not educated to see the nuance of the world. We're not educated well enough to see that this should be in society, or this should be because it's also everywhere else in nature. We're not that educated as a society here. Other cultures have moved way beyond that. It's us. So back to emotional intelligence. Stop expecting fidelity, ladies. I don't know. That's a concept. And I'm going to refer to again. I don't know how to tell you, but to look in nature. We are a reflection of nature, whether we like it or not. The one thing that we have over most of the other animals is we believe that we're making decisions, right? But at the same time, our behavior mimics the rest of nature. So are we really making a decision, or are we just acting the way that everything else in fucking nature acts? You decide. But please know that there's nothing that you have done or can do that isn't mimicked somewhere in nature. There's no such thing. You can't do something unnatural.
And so that means women can do cheat as well.
Hell yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Because the law that you're using, the law that keeps people from cheating is a man-made one, for one. It's just something that we agree upon as a society, that if you're married, you're not supposed to.
No.
But they also created divorce. They also created annulment. They also created all these ways out of marriage. All these ways out of marriage for a variety of reasons. I always thought if two people wanted to make a commitment to each other, why not buy property? Mm-hmm. That way, if you decide to separate, you sell the property and both of you get some money for the property. To me, that is a more efficacious way of showing I love you, because we have made an investment together. And at the end, if there's an end, and we have taken care of this property like our relationship, it will reap us a benefit. But I've never been married, so don't listen to me. And so back to tonight's conversation, and I'll put the link to this particular episode in the description at the bottom of the video, because so that you can go back and have a point of reference. Because the young woman, everything that she said, well, it's going to be hard, and this is going to be tough, and then it's going to be everything that she said, she put a negative connotation on it. She never said, well, you know what, maybe if he decided to do that, maybe I need to reflect about the relationship and decide this is what I want to be in. I don't need to take it out on myself, because I know that his behavior has nothing to do with me. I've been doing everything it is that I need to do in a relationship. So what I'm going to do now is we can sit down and if I can't trust him, because this experience has shown me that I can't trust him, why are you going to sit down and try and have a conversation with somebody who just cheated on you, or maybe probably kept the relationship from you? What do you expect to gain from that? Closure? No. Because you can't even believe if what they're saying is true. How does that provide you closure? Please tell me, somebody let me know, how does that provide you closure? Closure is closing off your feelings to whatever it was you thought the relationship was, because it wasn't, and using the energy that you have been pouring into that relationship to pour back into you. Because remember, there's 5 key elements to emotional intelligence. So the first 3 have to do with you. Self-awareness, self-regulation, and motivation are the first 3. And motivation is a interesting thing, because we all like motivation and we all think we need motivation. But the truth of it is motivation is inconsistent. Motivation isn't something that's going to come every day. So you have to learn how to create habits that are going to foster better emotional intelligence for you. You have to learn how to create those habits. It is not, and that's the part that I didn't like when she was talking. You have to take responsibility for however it is you feel. Because at the end of the day, what your feelings are really is a result of your life experiences. You feel this way because people have told you that him having sex with somebody else is wrong, and it probably means that you weren't doing something right. Somewhere along the line, that idea was impressed into your head. So now you are feeling that, because that's a culmination of your experiences. That has nothing to do with him. It has nothing to do with him. How you feel about him sticking his penis in somebody else has nothing to do with him. It has to do with you. Because by the same token, there was another podcast that I happened to see. And there were these young women. If you've seen this, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm sure if you Google this kind of topic, it will come up. There was a group of young, and these were women of color, which is what shocked me. I sent you the video. It should be in your messenger. All these women had men who were bisexual or whatever. The multisexual thing where you can have sex with anybody. They were that. So they would sometimes have threesomes with their man, with another man, or sometimes they would let him go off and be with another man by himself, or sometimes he would be with the man and she would watch. Like it was pick and choose your variety of whatever thing was going on at the time. But needless to say, these women were comfortable with it, and they made the men comfortable with it. And they were saying like he enjoys the company of another man, for lack of a better term, from time to time. So I do it with him, or I let him go do him and then I go do me, or we get together and we should, whatever it is. And I say that to say that there is nuance. The way that you look at a relationship isn't the same way that other people look at a relationship. What you need to do is be steadfast in what it is that you want out of a relationship, out of all relationships. Let me put it that way. Because if you're not true with the type of thing that you expect from people, you're going to get the type of person who's going to lie to you about whether they will be faithful to you or not. You have to be genuine with you about what it is that you can and you can't stand, what you do want, what you don't want, and where is your mind at? Because as much as we don't talk about this, the thing that you think about the most is the thing that's going to come into your experience. So if your mind is always suspicious about him cheating, guess what? You can't help but bring that into your experience if it's always on your mind. Now, you can look back on your own life and and collect your own evidence about how many times in your life have you had something on your mind and it appeared later and you're like, oh man, I knew this was going to happen, because you couldn't keep it off your mind. You couldn't change your mind. You have to be able to focus only on what it is you actually want to come into your experience, which means that fear is not an option. Everything you are afraid of, you are going to experience if you constantly think about it. And most of us do, because we're not in the manner of thinking in this country, particularly, is fear-based. Simple example: when there's a weather front coming in that is whatever, snow, let's say snow, they don't say, oh, it's just going to snow. Oh, it's a blizzard. Oh, it's a winter storm. Oh, it is a nor'easter. We are tracking a nor'easter. And what does everybody do? They run to the store and they buy everything off the goddamn shelves, like they're going to be snowed into their homes for years. And usually in a day and a half or so, everybody's back outside, if that long. We live in a time now where we don't have to do those things anymore, but the fear is still there. We still operate based on that fear, on the fear of lack, on the fear that we won't have something. Way too often. One of the biggest compliments that somebody has given me is they walked into my apartment where I live now and they were like, wow, you got rid of everything. Yeah. What no longer serves me and no longer fits just doesn't fit. I'm not going to try and make space for it. Not right now. I have never experienced a point in my life where I have been without. I've never been without. Not without food, not without shelter, not without clothing, not without company. I've always had. So I trust that it is going to always be that way. And that's where I try and keep my focus. Lastly, with that part, the part that bugs me about going into your head, and I know there's a bunch of people who are watching this thinking this is completely unrealistic. What I'm saying is that it's just not relatable. I get that. Keep coming. Because, see, here's the thing. Comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah. I didn't hear that phrase early enough in my life for my liking. I wish I had heard that in high school. I really wish I had heard that in high school. I would be such a different person. Because as I begin to ingest the fact that comparison is the thief of joy, it always just brings me back to the fact that it's just me that I need to worry about. Other people's actions, what they do, none of it has anything to do with me. There's no reason for me to dwell on it at all. What you do is what you do. I need to concentrate and bring the things into my life that I desire. And focusing on you or anybody outside of yourself is what I mean. Focusing on you or you or you, it's not going to get me what I need. It's not going to get me any closer to what I need. And coming back to yourself is back to the first 3 of the 5 key elements for emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, and now you can motivate yourself to do whatever it is you need to do in your life. See, one of the other things that we really don't teach in our culture here in the United States of America, and I have to make that distinction because I saw a video where this guy said something about South Americans, and he was like, yeah, next thing you know, they're going to be calling South Americans black people. What do you mean? They are. Anyway, that was a sidebar. All that to say that all of your adversity is going to be by your own design. How you experience your relationships is going to be based on what you think about relationships. If you think that infidelity is a rule breaker, then if that happens in your relationship obviously is going to end. Again, it's neither good nor bad. But if you judge that a relationship ending is a bad thing because that's what you've been told about relationships, if your relationship ended and it was a bad relationship, if you have that idea, then you're not going to learn from the relationship, which is what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to learn from it to take what you learn into the next relationship. It is not to hold on to the person until death do you part. That is a sick idea that has been planted in our heads. It is diabolical. Because it makes you try to find a hostage for the rest of your life. Yeah, I'm going to let that sit there a second, marinate. Yes, marriage is a hostage situation. We aren't in the days where you don't have great access to people anymore. There was a time when marriage had a useful purpose, because if a man encountered a woman for whatever reason and they hooked up, as we call it now, and she ended up pregnant, marriage was the way to ensure that the man would stay and take care of the kid, because particularly at that time, no other man was going to come along and want to take it. Well, very few men would come along and take care of a woman with a kid. There were men, obviously. But it was a harder thing for a woman to survive without a kid then. There was no welfare, no Social Security. There was no state to go to in that regard financially. You had to just make it how you made it. So marriage was a better thing then. Not that it successfully kept men at home at all, because it didn't, as much as it does today, I guess. But back then, if there were some men who honored their word and stayed, that doesn't mean that they were faithful. It just means that they stayed and honored their word. They might have a whole other family across town or in the next county, but they stayed to take care of the family that they said they would, because that was what marriage was. People didn't have the same access to other people that they do today. Today, it's an antiquated idea. If you would like to commit to somebody, by all means, commit to somebody. You can have all types of ceremonies and all types of things to commit however you would like to commit, but to believe that it's till death do you part, unless you're both terminally ill, yeah, I don't understand why you would do that. It really doesn't make sense. There are more than 8 billion people in this world. Why would you try to shackle yourself to one? Why? And not just that, if depending on, there are some people who are in relationships where your personality types are completely different. So if you are, let's say, an introvert and your spouse is an extrovert, now they are dragging you along through their life. You are the hostage being dragged along for a ride. And simply because you decided to give into cultural convention. We have to employ better critical thinking skills if we are to move forward, period. Letting go of antiquated ideas. We have to examine them, and whatever doesn't fit, whatever is a progressive, we can let it go. We need to do that a little quicker, though, because things are happening faster. Technology is moving faster. People are changing faster. We are experiencing different things faster. We are getting information faster. So, like on this meme I saw the other day, it said, what did it say? Something to the effect of, I'm too young not to know, but too old to be wasting time. Smack dab in the middle. Now, to get rid of, not to get rid of, but to become better with your emotional intelligence, there are some things that the experts have come up with to make that a better or easier or a delineated type of process. One is, they say, be more self-aware, recognize others' feelings, practice active listening, which is a skill, because many of us only listen to respond. Stay positive, empathize, be open-minded, and listen to feedback, which is one of the reasons why I'm trying to solicit feedback to help me in my emotional intelligence. But there's one thing, I've been thinking about this, and I just don't, I really don't have an answer to what I'm about to propose. But where does that begin? The process of beginning to become emotional intelligent in regard to men dealing with women specifically, male-female relationships in particular, because the dynamic with men and women can be mother, son, or husband, wife. So if a man learns his emotional intelligence from his mom, hopefully it will match with the woman that he chooses to marry. And oftentimes men pick a woman who reminds them, if not their mother, their grandmother, sister, an aunt, close cousin, somebody in that man's life is who he usually models his romantic partner after, whether he's aware of it or not. And women do the same thing. It's usually their father, grandfather, an uncle, older brother or something, who they look for. That is the person who they are aspire to, who they have the closest connection with, is how I'm gonna say it. They have the closest connection with them, I guess, emotionally. And that's who you kind of look for, who many of us look for. We look for our parents or our grandparents and our romantic partners. So make sure that your mom, if you're going to take your cue as to what most emotional intelligence is, make sure she's the type of woman that you want to marry. because you're gonna look for her. And unless you stop and do work on yourself first, that's who you're gonna find. It's so automatic. We don't look for the things that we think we look for. What we look for is comfort. We look for somebody who makes us feel comfortable for whatever reason.
Comfort or familiar.
Familiar. Well, a little bit of both. Depending on the person, it might sway in one direction a little more than the other. Excuse me. But when I say comfort, I mean those things that are familiar to us. Thank you for that, though. Yeah, so the merry-go-round of passing on emotional intelligence. The merry-go-round of passing on emotional intelligence. Because the other thing is, not only does he look for a man, not only does a man look for somebody who is familiar, but he also mimics certain behaviors from that same person. His intelligence, unless he does work outside of his family and outside of the environment that he or she grew up in, let me do that. Unless a person does work outside of the environment that they grew up in, they're going to mimic the same things that they see over and over again. So you're going to create a circle, a merry-go-round, where you have a woman who, for whatever reason, her emotional intelligence is X. She has a son who then copies those same type of characteristics, who then marries a woman who, whatever her emotional intelligence is, now you're forming a new strand of this thing. And it keeps going, it keeps growing, it keeps evolving. So the one thing you can do to jump in the middle right now and kind of break the generational curse is to stop believing that you have to be in a relationship. Our society is geared toward relationships. It is. Everything you see is going to make you want to be in a relationship. Every commercial, every movie, every TV series has a love interest in it. You can't read a book without some hint of a love interest, unless it's some sort of historical biography or textbook or something like that. You're not going to find anything in the movies without a romantic backstory somewhere. We are geared to reproduce. Nobody finds that strange. You all don't find that strange? I say this all the time. From the time a little girl is born and she can begin to mimic her mom, the first thing they stick in her hand is a baby doll. And we don't make the connection that that's preparing that child for sex. We don't make that connection in our head. But the child will make that connection when the child finds out how babies get here. And it may or may not be a conversation that they have with you. But I guarantee it's a realization that they'll come to at some point. I'm sure you'll be left out of it. So you have to make sure that your child, when they are seeking these partners, first of all, that they pump the brakes. There's no reason for you to be in a relationship right now. The relationship that you need to develop is the one with you. Because as a child, obviously, you don't know you. You're bumping around in the dark, emulating other people, copying this, reading that, getting this off the news. Your friends are telling you this, and you're doing all these things, trying to figure out what feels good for you, what feels comfortable for you, what type of skin should you put on today. You have all these things all these people trying to mold you into the thing that they want you to be. It's going to come from everywhere. So if you don't make a decision about who you are, somebody's going to tell you who the fuck you are. So you have to be the first person to decide what that is, who that is, how that is, why that is. You have to be the first person to decide that. And if you are a young person under the age of 18 and you are watching this video, you have a key now that most adults in your life don't have. Slow down. Your government, your educational system, all of them want you to begin to have babies. male or female. They want you to begin to reproduce so that if you should die, there are more people here to take your place, to do the work that they will not do, to do the work that their children will benefit from your children doing, to build the bank accounts of your future, of their future children. Your children will build the bank accounts of their future children. Because you were in a rush to have kids. And nobody told you that feeding into the system more children just keeps the system going. The person who created the educational system in this country said they don't want a country of thinkers. They want a country of workers. They want you to show up and go the fuck to work for $10, $15 an hour. They want you to subsist, not exist. They want you to subsist. They want you to always be reliant on them, to always need to go for a program, to always need to go for help, to always need to go for a little assistance. They want you to always be coming to them looking for a break, because they have created a system that makes your life so hard that it is difficult to live day to day without assistance. As inflation rises, the pay for the country should rise. That hasn't happened. Not in any meaningful way. Not when houses for a regular family are more than $500,000. So the last thing any young person should be thinking about is procreating. Unless you have been so far in your education that there is no further thing that you can learn in the field that you have chosen to work. Unless you have already acquired land and a home, and it is paid off, and you walk in every day with only your current bills to pay. Unless the car that you're driving has no payments. These are few of the things that you should have in place first before you think about bringing another person to this planet, before you decide to drag them along with your life. That's the thing I never understood about parents. Like, I've heard people complain about the way that they grew up, and then they had kids. Like, why would you bring somebody into the thing that you hated and complained about? But that's another story. Fine, you had the kids, but you do not have to have them early. I am not against having children. I am against people having children and making their children suffer through the same types of insecurities and inequities that they had to suffer through. I'm opposed to parents forgetting how they felt as children and then having children and putting them into a system that is going to treat their children the exact same way. I don't understand the logic in that. But again, I don't have kids. I like to say that often, so nobody ever thinks that I think that I'm doing something that I'm in the parent lane. I'm not in the parent lane. I'm in the human lane. Y'all can take on as many titles as you need to make you feel good. I'm gonna stay human. So if you've gotten this far, I thank you for watching. I'm gonna list again a few of the things that people can begin to work on if they want to begin to be more emotionally intelligent. Because I think I'm going to do another part to this, because there's another video that kind of, I believe, ties into this, but it's Trip from tonight's conversation, talking about the emotional intelligence of men. So I think I'll do a conversation about that next. Thank you for watching. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and share the video with all your friends or any of your friends, just to have the conversation about emotional intelligence. And if you're in a relationship with somebody who you think needs to begin the conversation, or you're having trouble beginning the conversation about emotional intelligence with your partner, send them this video and tell them I said hi. Okay. I'm Uncle D. If you have questions that you want to inbox me, you can send them to dbsamad, I-M-A-A-D, dbsamAAD at gmail.com. Actually, I'll edit this part out. Actually, send them to imrealdevious at gmail.com. That's what they were. Send them to imreal. And 4, 3, 2, 1. Send your emails to imrealdvs at gmail.com. Like, comment, and share. So